So, with the news that the Honolulu Star-Advertiser may be having a new buyer soon, it got me thinking about the future of print journalism in the state. Is Hawaii really going to lose its largest newspaper? And as a longtime Honolulu Advertiser, now Honolulu Star-Bulletin reader, I just want to share my thoughts on the newspaper and possibly what they could do to maybe improve things. Because the way that we're consuming news nowadays is very different from when I was a little kid. Back when the only time that I would read the Honolulu Advertiser was in social studies class, when I would ask the teacher, "Hey, can you sample the newspaper?" And pretty much all I would do was read sports and comics. Hey, no lie, you did them too. Now I do think it's important that Hawaii has a local newspaper. I know print media is struggling not just here, but across the country, around the world. With the internet and with smartphones, the access to news nowadays for the general public is so easy. And as a business that is primarily print, but also now online news, how do you make that transition and make that business viable? And an institution like the Honolulu Star-Advertiser is important to me personally. I mean, I don't know if you know, but part of what I studied in college was journalism. I thought I was going to be a journalist, a writer, someone who would write stories and update readers on what was going on in wherever I was. And I even remember going to the Honolulu Advertiser building when I was in college, and I was going to interview for an internship as a part of the Society of Professional Journalists. So I think local journalism and news is very important, but I also think that because of how technology has changed our access to news, even how news is delivered or written, I feel like a lot of these news sources are going to have to change. When I think about artificial intelligence or AI, it can write news stories so much faster than a person can. And sure, someone's got to actually go out to some of these sources to ask questions and look around and take pictures. But after that, when it comes to the actual writing of these articles, it seems like AI can do an amazing job. All this to say that I hope that the Honolulu Star-Advertiser hangs in there. Now, while I do think that local news sources like the Honolulu Star-Advertiser are super important to locals and staying informed here in Hawaii, I do think that they have to change. And so for the Star-Advertiser in particular, I just wanted to offer 3 friendly suggestions. Number 1, I think they need to phase out the print copies of the newspaper. I know there's gonna be plenty of uncles and aunties, grandmas and grandpas who are gonna complain because they gotta have the newspaper in the morning with their coffee, or they just are so used to having a newspaper that they cannot break out of that. I completely understand that. My grandparents were the same way back when I was younger. I mean, for me growing up, every time I go to my grandparents' house, it was, "Hey, go grab the newspaper." And I have to go outside and try to find it, and if it rained, I gotta go find the plastic bag. Now, I don't know the current circulation of the actual print news, and that's wonderful to have that, I guess, as an option. But the thing is, I don't even think the numbers are as big as the numbers would suggest. And I know that there are people who just love the feel, the smell of holding a newspaper. You can sort of go through at your own pace. Completely understand that. I felt the same way about books. And I thought to myself, there's no way that I'm ever gonna get a Kindle, right? Because I love books so much. I love to read. I need to feel the pages. But eventually I was like, I don't have enough room for this. And it's so much easier to get books. I can borrow books, I can buy books now, and it's all in a very small device. Now, by phasing out the actual physical copies of the newspaper, I think that would force everyone to now consume it online. And I think at this point, everyone should have access, whether through their phone or through a computer, to be able to view the news digitally. And I think that would actually help save with the overhead costs of having to actually print, deliver, production, all of that. It would save so much money. Now, I know that would be a very hard change because, in Hawaii, we don't like change. We like the way that things used to be. But I'm just saying, I think for the next generation, nobody's gonna want to touch a newspaper, the physical copy. It's just, why? The second thing I think they need to do is cut the paywall for a lot of their articles. Now, I know that the subscriptions are a way to help pay for the overall costs, but it's kind of a hard balance, right? Like, as a newspaper, you're providing news to the public to inform them. So you are doing a good community service in a way. But if 90% of the, 100% of the articles sometimes, it seems like it's behind the subscription wall. It's behind a paywall. I understand why it's there. News cannot be free. Somebody's got to pay for all these costs. Now, I'll just speak for myself when it comes to how I consume news. When there's an interesting article online on the Star-Advertiser website, I read the headline. If there's a star next to it, I click on the article and I read the first sentence and a half, and then it cuts off because you gotta log in and stuff. And to me, that's very discouraging. And so it's gotten to the point where if I see a star next to the article, which is like most of the articles on the homepage now, I just don't even bother clicking, and I just go to another news source. I go to one of the TV stations, or I just go to Google News or Reddit, because I just don't want to be blocked by that. And I think the way that a lot of people are consuming their news, especially as they scroll through social media, is they see a picture, a video, a headline, and maybe one or two byline sentences, and that's it. After that, they're scrolling on to the next thing. I don't think that there are a lot of people that are interested in reading super long articles. I enjoy those from time to time, but I'm just saying that for the majority of people who are consuming news, they don't consume news the way that people used to when they're opening up the big newspaper. So I think by removing that paywall, removing that subscription, it would get people to come back to the Honolulu Star-Advertiser website. Because again, I think a lot of people don't go to the website for news because if they don't have a subscription, they cannot see anything, they cannot read anything, or at the very most, all they can see is the headline, the picture, and that first sentence. And that's not really a good way of staying informed. Besides, I think what they collect in revenue from subscriptions is a very small amount compared to how they really pay the bills, which is through ads. And my last suggestion, and this really frankly could apply to all the news stations like TV, not just newspaper, but I think the advertiser has a very good opportunity to do something very special when it comes to news. I think they need to produce a digital news talk show. Now, I know that they post YouTube videos and they do have a social media presence, but I think they need to have something besides just, oh, here's what's happening today. That's wonderful to have, and people do gain a lot of value out of that. But what makes the Honolulu Star-Advertiser any more special now than the other news stations through other even non-conventional alternative news networks or outlets or media presences on social media? I think it'd be wonderful to have a daily digital talk show, news talk show talking about local news. They could model it after television shows like Around the Horn or Pardon the Interruption or Undisputed. Now there would be a line, right, between reporting the news and editorial or opinion. And because nowadays you don't need to be on TV to create a show, they could create this daily local talk show that talks about what's going on in the news that they themselves report. That would be so interesting, because I think nowadays people are more interested in what other people think. They want that connection or that discussion when it comes to current events. I don't think it's enough just to be informed about what's happening, but they want to hear what other people have to say. I mean, look at things like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. It's not enough just to inform, but they want to know what you think about that, what these people think about that, what others think about that. And I think that if you build a show around strong personalities who are intelligent, well-informed, able to explain their reasoning or opinions on certain topics, and they can be very strong opinions, that's fine. But I think having a show like that would make it must-see, not really TV, but must-see digital content, because there would be nothing like that here in the state. A place where on-air talent could express their opinions that frankly a lot of people probably share as well, but they just don't see it online. And media outlets like the Honolulu Star-Advertiser or other news stations, they could do that. They could say, okay, we're gonna present news, but this is something else we're gonna do too, like a commentary on what we just reported. Make it fun, make it entertaining, make it almost a debate type of show. And I think you're gonna have people tuning in because there's nothing like that. It's gonna be so much more entertaining to learn about things, to learn about news, to be informed about what's going on, but also the personalities would drive this show, would drive whatever the discussion is gonna be. And I think people would tune in not because of the news, but because they wanna know what so-and-so has to think about it. And I know that holding strong opinions can sometimes be difficult in Hawaii, because it's a small place, and people might get mad if you think a certain thing, and might be somebody's uncle or cousin you're talking about, and that could be a challenge. But I think if you had the support of the news network or the newspaper in this case, where they wouldn't have to worry, that the on-air talent wouldn't have to worry about necessarily too much of the politics going on, and just let them be themselves, let them share their opinion, and let them just say what a lot of people are thinking without having to worry so much about the marketing stuff. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the staff at the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. I don't know if there's going to be more cuts, or frankly, what's going to go on there. And maybe what's going to happen to these news outlets is they're just going to have to get smaller, almost like Civil Beat, where you have a small staff and it's just purely digital. And I think creating some kind of product, some kind of daily local talk show about the news with strong personalities that can explain things that people can find a lot in common with, and they'll tune in and they'll find very relatable. I think that type of product, I think that could be the future for local news. There's news, like hard news, objective news, and then there's commentary and opinion. And I think as long as you draw that line and you let people know, hey, this is just opinion, this is not like news, but it's a way that people can consume news if they like. And I think that's a way to get people interested in what you're doing and consuming that content. And from there, the advertisers will come. So thanks for watching, and aloha.